This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. My name is Rocky. My girlfriend and I have been together for over a year, and she has always refused to let me touch her. She says she is a traditional and conservative girl, and the most precious thing must be saved for after marriage. I believed her, until I found a box of emergency contraceptive pills in her bag. The box clearly says, this product comes in a box of 2 pills. Take the first pill within 24 hours of unprotected intercourse, and the second pill 12 hours later. And now, there is one less pill in the box. My mind went blank. I was stunned. The sound of running water from the bathroom stopped abruptly. My girlfriend had finished her shower. I quickly put the bag back in its place, but I couldn't stop the wild thoughts racing through my mind. Yesterday, my girlfriend told me she was going out to dinner and a movie with her close friend, and she came back close to midnight. Could it be? The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. The more I thought, the greener my face turned. When my girlfriend came out in her pajamas, I asked casually, "Which movie did you watch with your friend yesterday? Was it any good?" Her hand, which was drying her hair, paused. "We just picked a random movie. I was too busy chatting with my friend and forgot all about it." Seeing that I was about to ask more, she hurriedly said, "I won't say more. I have class early tomorrow, so I need to go to bed early." After she turned away, I could see her darkening expression. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. My girlfriend Haley works as a dance teacher at a children's training institution. As long as I'm not busy, I pick her up and drop her off from work. I know everyone in her social circle. I spent the entire night trying to figure out who she might have wronged me with if she did betray me. In the morning, I drove her to work as usual, and she suddenly said, "You don't need to pick me up tonight. Is something going on today? You've been working late recently. I don't want you to be so tired." I remained silent. Something doesn't add up. Why hasn't she been this considerate before? She often got upset with me for not being able to pick her up due to my overtime. Something strange must be happening. I agreed to her request, but endured a day of torment. That night, I drove straight to her training center, parked in a discreet spot, and waited. Around 9, parents started to pick up their children. Then, a few of Haley's colleagues from the center came out, but Haley was nowhere to be seen. Damn it, is something really going on? When patience was about to run out, my girlfriend came out. She was holding the hand of a little girl in a dance outfit. There was also a tall man in his 30s with the girl, presumably a parent. The man walked to a Mercedes parked at the roadside, opened the door, and indicated for the girl to get in first. The little girl even waved goodbye affectionately to my girlfriend. It turns out she was inside with a student's parent. Maybe I was overthinking it. The medicine might have just been a misunderstanding. Everyone who knows my girlfriend says she is pure and well-behaved. I know better. My girlfriend is the kind of person who blushes at dirty jokes, so how could she betray me? Thinking this, I couldn't help but feel guilty for my suspicions. But the next moment, I saw a scene that struck me like a lightning bolt. After the girl got in the car, the man blocked the car window with his body and reached into my girlfriend's collar, rubbing it firmly. My girlfriend lightly tapped him with a pout. This affectionate and practiced gesture was definitely not the first time. I don't know how I got home. I had just arrived when my girlfriend came back. She seemed in a great mood, humming a song as she went to take a shower. The box of contraceptive pills in her bag was already gone. I pulled out her phone. I would never have done this before, so that's why she didn't delete the chat history. The first conversation in the list was labeled Mr. Rocky. There were several hundred messages between them, and the more I read, the colder my heart became. "Don't leave marks on my neck. I can't keep telling my boyfriend it's mosquito bites. Try to tone it down in front of your daughter. Does your husband still turn you on?" Honestly, touching her now feels like touching myself. Her flat figure is nowhere near as good as yours. Why don't you wear that lace one from last time today? Not going to show me? Believe it or not, I'll make you cry so hard you won't be able to close your legs. Further back, they even talked about me. He's not bad to me, willing to spend money on me. Isn't your boyfriend a loser? Can he even hold out? Even if he can't, he'll have to endure it. He wouldn't want to break up with me. You're not still thinking about marrying such a loser, are you? I haven't thought about marriage. Having a simp around is pretty nice. If I get bored, I'll just kick him to the curb. Although I was somewhat prepared, seeing these messages with my own eyes made my limbs feel frozen, as if I had fallen into an ice cave. After a year of dating, as her official boyfriend, I had to ask for permission to hold her hand or kiss her, depending on her mood. As for more intimate actions, they were completely out of the question. She always emphasized that girls should be reserved and boasted about her strict upbringing, insisting that the most precious things should be saved for marriage, claiming it was the responsible approach to love and marriage. I respected her wishes and even thought I had found a rare, good girl. But what's the reality? While she acted like the most virtuous and chaste woman in front of me, behind my back, she was sleeping with a married man. Is there a more pitiful fool than me? Tony? My anger surged, and I was on the verge of losing my mind. Unable to hold back any longer, I burst into the bathroom. Startled, my girlfriend screamed, "What are you doing? Who told you to come in?" She covered herself, but the red marks on her collarbone were glaringly visible. I forced myself to stay calm and didn't voice my questions. It wasn't the right time to confront her yet. Taking a deep breath, I pointed at the razor and said, "I came for this." She angrily threw the soap at me, shouting, "Get out." Her fierce and disdainful expression was a world away from the sweet and flirtatious demeanor she displayed with other men on Facebook. Damn it, we have to break up, absolutely. I noted down the license plate of that man from last night. Given that his daughter takes dance classes with my girlfriend, finding out who he wasn't difficult. The scumbag, named Tony, is a VP at a subsidiary of a major corporation, drives a luxury car, and lives in a villa. He seems like a high-status, successful individual. Since his wife became pregnant with their second child, he's been frequently dropping his daughter off at her extracurricular activities. That's how he got to know my girlfriend. I hired someone to follow Tony for a few days and found out he not only kept in touch with his ex, but had also slept with my girlfriend at least twice. What a despicable bastard. Even with his wife pregnant, he hasn't slowed down. I collected all the evidence, Tony and my girlfriend's chat logs, photos of him with his ex, and proof of his escapades. I also managed to get his wife's phone number. I initially planned to send all this directly to his wife, but then I realized that might not be the best approach. Since I have this leverage over him, I intend to make sure he faces complete disgrace. Here is the translation of the provided text into English, with an attempt to maintain the frequency of line breaks. While my girlfriend, on the other hand, is simply like a little girl who is deeply in love, living with me every day, yet always staring at her phone and laughing, treating me as if I were blind. Not only that, but the clothes she wears when going out every day are becoming more and more revealing, and the time she comes home from work is getting later and later. I remind her to be more mindful in front of the students, but she says I have an old-fashioned mind and lack romance. Fine. I lack romance. That scumbag has romance. It was only later that I found out that the extra bags and perfumes that my girlfriend suddenly had were not, as she claimed, bought through a purchasing agent, but all gifts from the scumbag. The two even made an appointment to go to a private hot spring. My girlfriend resorted to her old tricks, bringing up her best friend as a shield again. I tried hard to play the role of an honest man, not only reminding her to have a good time, but also saying that if she was ready to come back and wanted me to pick her up, she could call me. As soon as my girlfriend left the house, I secretly followed her. The scumbag's car was waiting by the roadside, and as soon as my girlfriend got in, they started kissing passionately, inseparable. Damn it. Using the new phone number I had prepared long ago, I sent a text message to Tony's wife. "As your husband's ex, I don't want to interfere with your family, but he keeps pestering me. Please keep your man in check." Almost immediately, Tony's wife called me back. I didn't answer. She was persistent, calling over and over again. I sent her another message. "Instead of doing this, you might as well call your husband and see if he's really working overtime or doing something else. That's all I have to say." I waited patiently. Tony's car just started and then pulled over again. The next moment, my girlfriend was suddenly kicked out of the car. Through the passenger window, you could see Tony answering a video call. My girlfriend, looking confused, was pounding on the car window, but Tony didn't even look at her, put down his phone, and drove off with the gas pedal. My girlfriend was furious on the spot. She came back still in a bad mood. I pretended to be clueless. "Baby, why are you back? Aren't you going out with your best friend?" She ignored me and went into the bedroom, the sound of typing on her phone clattering incessantly. It was only after she fell asleep at night that I saw what she had posted on Facebook. "Did you kick me out of the car for that yellow-faced woman? What else can that sow do besides giving birth to children? Do you think this is fair to me, Tony?" Well, she turned into a complaining wife. Are all the mistresses so brazen these days? Even comparing fairness with the original wife. But no matter how many questions she posted, the scumbag didn't reply to any. With a belly full of anger and nowhere to vent, she took it out on me, picking at my nose and finding fault with my eyes, either complaining that the water I boiled was too hot or criticizing the clothes I hung not facing the same direction. Even an accidental power outage gets blamed on me. What kind of crappy house did you buy? When the power goes out, you just sit there waiting. Don't think of any solutions? What can I actually rely on you for? My friends, they all found rich people, live in big houses, and have nannies taking care of them for their weddings. They can just wait to become rich wives. And you? What can you give me? Why is being with you so full of troubles? Ladies and gentlemen, if your partner suddenly starts nitpicking and complaining, there's a 99% chance that they have a counterpart in their life. I let her rant and rave while I just looked at my phone. This attitude only made my girlfriend angrier. "Are you dead? I'm talking to you." She tried to grab my phone, and I finally said impatiently, "Can you shut up for once?" Since we started dating, I've always been compliant with her, never saying a harsh word even when we argued. So now, she's both shocked and furious. "You're yelling at me? You actually yelled at me? Forget just yelling. If it weren't for the timing, I'd have slapped you already. What woman acts like you? Making a fuss over trivial matters like a shrew. And you're supposed to be an art teacher. If your students knew, how embarrassing for you. I never told you, but every time you lose your temper, you look awful, really ugly." My girlfriend has always been very confident about her appearance, coming from a dancing background and used to flattery since childhood. Over time, she genuinely considered herself a celestial being with a subtle sense of superiority over other women. In her conversation with Tony, she'd mentioned how the original partner was so plain, looked rural, and was a tomboy. After I said this, she nearly went crazy. I went into the bedroom and locked the door. She pounded and slammed outside. "Rocky, you'll regret this. Don't come back begging for my forgiveness like a dog." A loud crash. My girlfriend left my house. I had a refreshing sleep. The next morning, I drove straight to my girlfriend's parents' house. They had invited me several times before, but I had been avoiding going because I knew they were looking to borrow money. Her older brother had a family now, and after getting married, he needed more space. So my girlfriend was renting a place before we moved in together. Now, with his wife about to give birth and no space at home, her parents were thinking about buying a house for him. As soon as I arrived, I got straight to the point. "Uncle, Auntie, I'm here today to discuss marriage with Haley." They exchanged glances and said nothing. I knew what they were thinking. When I first visited, her mother had subtly asked how much my family would offer as a dowry. I gave a vague average number, around 100,000, and they clearly disapproved. Because of this, my girlfriend had been giving me attitude, accusing me of being stingy, insincere, and looking down on her. Her father took a slow sip of tea and said, "Rocky, why so sudden? I've been with Haley for over a year, and I think it's about time. Plus, I'm not getting any younger, and my parents are urging me. Marriage is a big deal." I quickly replied, "Rest assured, after marrying Haley, I will treat her well, and my family will show enough sincerity to bring her into our home." Her mother casually remarked, "Sincerity isn't just about words. You know Haley's cousin, right? She's not as good as Haley, but she got 200,000 as a dowry." I smiled and remained silent. The bride's side also contributed 200,000, but she didn't mention that. "My daughter has been pampered since she was young. We can't bear for her to suffer." "Really? Then why, when your son got married, was there no place for your daughter to stay? She looks as good as those celebrities and has an excellent and respectable job. With these conditions, she could even marry Russell, right?" "Well, I'm not Russell, so I won't comment." After going around in circles, her mother finally got to the point. "To marry my daughter, your family has to offer at least this amount." She held up 3 fingers. It was too small. "Ma'am, my family can offer $500,000. How about that?" Her mother was stunned. "How much did you say?" Her father spat out a mouthful of tea, also looking at me in shock. I smiled faintly. "500,000. We'll provide 500,000 for the betrothal gift." Both of them jolted in surprise. With 500,000, their son's down payment for a house would be covered, and this money doesn't need to be paid back. Her father, trembling with excitement, asked, "Rocky, are you serious?" "Absolutely, Uncle. How could I joke about something like this? Haley is such a great girl. She deserves the best. Though, we had an argument yesterday, and she hasn't spoken to me since." Her father quickly said, "That's fine. She just has a bit of a temper. I'll talk to her." I nodded with a smile. Her mother's face lit up, and she said, "My Haley is still a virgin. Although young people today don't pay much attention to this, having this at marriage gives a woman confidence. You're a man. You wouldn't ignore this, right? So actually, it's not a loss for your family to give a bit more for the betrothal gift." It was better that she hadn't mentioned it. As soon as she did, I nearly lost control of my expression. I took a sip of the water I brought, suppressing the sarcasm in my eyes. Her father seemed to notice for the first time and immediately stood up to make tea for me. Her mother said she would prepare a meal. I quickly declined. "Uncle and Auntie, it's not necessary. Let's keep things casual. I have something to attend to and need to leave." The old couple insisted on keeping me, but I still left. I really had something to do. These days, I had someone watching Tony. As soon as he went to a hotel, I was to be notified immediately. As expected, it happened sooner than I thought. My girlfriend had left home after our argument yesterday, and today she was already with another man. I tried calling her but found I was blocked, probably afraid I'd interrupt her time with that scumbag. I drove to the hotel in a hurry. Today, they would definitely have a day they'd never forget. Her mother was dumbfounded. it. How much did you say? Her father spat out a mouthful of tea, also looking at me in shock. I smiled faintly. 500,000. For the betrothal gift, we will give 500,000. Both of them shuddered in unison. With 500,000, the down payment for their son's house would be more than enough. And the money doesn't have to be paid back. Her father's voice trembled with excitement. Rocky, are you serious? Of course, Uncle. How could I joke about this? Haley is such a good girl. She deserves my kindness. But we had a fight yesterday, and she hasn't spoken to me yet. Her father quickly said, that's okay. This girl just has a bit of a temper. I'll talk to her later. I nodded with a smile. Her mother was overjoyed, even telling me, my Haley is still a virgin, although you young people don't care about this now. But women, when they get married, having this is confidence. As a man, you can't help but care about this, right? So actually, your family giving more betrothal gifts is not a loss. It was fine not to mention it. As soon as she mentioned it, I almost couldn't control my expression. I took a sip of the water I brought, suppressing the sarcasm in my eyes. Her father seemed to have just noticed and immediately stood up to make tea for me. Her mother said she was going to cook for me. I quickly declined. Uncle and Aunt, no need. We are family. Don't be a stranger. I have something to do, and I have to go first. The old couple, for the first time, warmly retained me, but I left. I really had something to do. These days, I still let people keep an eye on Tony, and as soon as he went to the hotel, he would notify me immediately. As expected. I just didn't expect it to be so fast. My girlfriend just had a fight with me yesterday and ran away from home, and today she found a lover. I called her and found that she had blocked me, probably also afraid that I would disturb her and the scumbag's good things. I drove to the hotel at top speed. Today, I will definitely make them unforgettable for the rest of their lives. More than half an hour later, I arrived. The young man who was keeping an eye on me led me to the door of room 802. The young man, disguised as a waiter, falsely claimed to have room service. Tony quickly came to open the door. He was wearing a loose bathrobe with a satisfied look on his face, obviously just finished. Looking at this face, I couldn't bear it any longer, and I kicked him hard in the chest with all my strength. Damn it! Tony was caught off guard and stepped back 3 meters, then fell to the ground. I didn't give him a chance to catch his breath, and I swung my fist and hit him. And I didn't hit anywhere else, just aimed at his face. In just a few times, his nose was bleeding heavily, and he was crying out in pain. Who the hell are you? If you hit people again, believe it or not, I will find someone to kill you? I hit harder. Tony tried to fight back several times, but he didn't have the upper hand in a one-on-two situation, and in the end, he could only hold his head and take the beating. The anger that had been suppressed for so many days was finally vented out. A scream suddenly sounded from behind. My girlfriend came out of the bathroom. She saw it was me, and her eyes were about to pop out. How did you come? This question, how did I come? I have been enduring humiliation for so many days. Isn't it for today? Seeing that I was about to take action against the scumbag again, my girlfriend actually pounced over and protected him with her own body. I was really moved. Haley, didn't you say you want to be reserved? Didn't you say you are conservative? Didn't you say you can't have a relationship before marriage? What is this now? So you only keep your body pure for me? My girlfriend was angry and began to blame me. Have you ever thought about why I find someone else? If you make me satisfied in every way, would I find someone else? Why don't you reflect on your own problems? Do you listen to this? I really can't bear it. Haley, you are really cheap. Prostitutes are more open than you. My girlfriend jumped up and cursed. You are cheap. I will tell you clearly today, he is richer than you, taller than you, handsomer than you, better than you everywhere. So what if I sleep with him? We are going to get married. Humph. You say you're getting married just like that? As if I don't know the background of her lover, and she even flaunted it to me. I turned to the guy and asked, did you get it on film? Bro, don't worry, it's all recorded. Meanwhile, the scumbag hurriedly found some clothes to put on. The girlfriend, on the other hand, was even more assertive since she had already torn her face with me. We're done. Get lost. I ignored her. Rocky, does your wife know you were out messing around while she was pregnant? The two people across from me changed their expression simultaneously. I continued, if she finds out you're having an affair with your daughter's teacher, I wonder what will happen. Tony frowned. How do you know my wife? It's not important. I heard you have 2 brothers-in-law, and neither of them is easy to deal with. Tony was furious, clearly unhappy with my threat. Tell me, how much do you want? That one sentence made me even angrier. I raised my hand and gave him a hard slap. Damn your money. You think you're so impressive with a few lousy bucks? Always with the money, money, money. He had told his girlfriend more than once that I was just a loser, but now that I've caught him in the act, he's still acting so arrogantly. The scumbag's temples were throbbing. So what exactly do you want? I said slowly, if you don't want me to tell your wife, it's not impossible. Just slap her 10 times. The girlfriend immediately exploded in anger. Are you crazy? Rocky, I just found out today. You've hidden it well. Deep down, you're nothing but a despicable, shameless, sleazy lowlife. My best friend was right. When looking for a man, you should choose someone wealthy. Because guys like you, with your pathetic self-righteousness, are the worst. You think threatening with that old hag of his will cause a rift? The girlfriend ranted endlessly, but a sudden slap made her shut up. Tony looked at me with a complex expression. Is this how it is? He was even more decisive than I expected. I gave him a thumbs up. Only 9 left. Don't mess around. If any of them aren't up to standard, we start over. The girlfriend was stunned by the slap. She stared blankly at Tony. Tony, gritting his teeth, raised his hand and gave her the second slap. Rockey, her heart-wrenching scream almost perforated my eardrum. The girlfriend completely transformed into a shrew, scratching and clawing at Tony, completely different from her usually gentle and graceful self. If her colleagues and students saw this, they'd be shocked. You really hit me? How dare you hit me? My parents never laid a finger on me. Tony had a deep cut on his face from her nails. His temper flared instantly. What do you suggest I do? If you hadn't dragged me here desperately, would this have happened? Would I be getting beaten? I can't let my wife know about this. He turned to me. She's entirely to blame. She's been harassing and seducing me since last night, saying she's anxious and itchy. The girlfriend trembled, her face turning as red as a pig's liver. It was hard to tell if it was from shame or anger. Good. Dogs biting dogs. A joyous occasion, a delightful spectacle, a cause for celebration indeed. I reminded him expressionlessly, there are still 8 more. Tony was determined, holding my girlfriend with one hand and continuing to slap her with the other. This guy probably transferred his anger towards me to my girlfriend, and as time went on, not only did his strength not decrease, but it actually increased. 3, 4, 5. After the last slap, my girlfriend's face was swollen like a pig's head, and her voice was hoarse from crying. 10 slaps, the harm was not particularly great, but the insult was very strong. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her gaze was terrifying as if she wanted to kill someone. Tony, with a grim face, asked me, "Is it enough now?" I smiled. "All right, I'll leave first. Haley, from this moment on, we are officially broken up. I wish you a harmonious marriage for 100 years. After saying that, I signaled the young man who had been watching by the side to leave quickly. Before going out the door, I heard my girlfriend hysterically, "Tony, you are a son of a bitch." Then there was a series of noises. The young man asked me, "Brother, are you just going to let this man go? Isn't that too cheap for him?" How could it be possible? I waited for so many days, not just to take a few nude photos of him and that's it. Without saying a word, I made an anonymous call to the police. "Hello, I want to report a suspected rape case. The victim seems to have suffered severe violence and is currently emotionally collapsed." Confronting the suspect, "The location is the Marriott Hotel room number 802. I promised Tony not to tell his wife, but I didn't promise him not to do something else." The young man was stunned. "Brother, you are still formidable. The hotel is very close to the police station, and when the 2 uniformed uncles arrived, Haley and Tony were still fighting. Tony was almost scared to pee when he saw the police. Just at this time, Haley wished he was dead and insisted that it was rape. In the end, both of them were taken away. Rape cases are not a small matter. The written record alone took 7 or 8 hours. However, with both chat records and hotel surveillance as evidence, Tony was, of course, not eventually charged with rape. It doesn't matter. His wife did find out that he was taken away on suspicion of rape. Tony's wife rushed to the police station, and it turned out that her husband had been with his mistress in a hotel, and they ended up fighting, leading to the misunderstanding. She was furious on the spot. If the police hadn't intervened, I reckon Tony would have been beaten to a pulp. Realizing he was in the wrong, he was close to begging his wife for forgiveness. As for Haley, who always mocked the original partner as being inferior to herself, when faced with reality, she didn't dare to utter a word. It could be described as a hasty retreat. She didn't come to my place or return home, but instead went to hide at her friend's house. A few days later, one morning, her mother called. "Rockey, what's going on with you and Haley?" She came back yesterday and said nothing, but this morning, after leaving the house, she suddenly told me that you two have broken up. She even mentioned quitting her job, and her father and I are almost driven mad by her. Quit her job? I guessed it was because she feared her scandal would be exposed, and she couldn't hold her head high in front of colleagues and family. I tentatively asked, "Auntie, didn't Haley tell you why we broke up?" Her mother's tone was somewhat displeased. "No, Rockey, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but it's normal for young people to argue. No matter what the conflict, you're a man and should be more understanding and tolerant. Besides, you and Haley are at the stage of talking about marriage. How can you just break up like that? Understanding, tolerance, it sounds good, but you don't know what your daughter has done." I pretended to be downcast. "Auntie, in the end, it's all my fault. I wasn't able to satisfy Haley with everything, and now I don't know what to do. I'll pack up her things from my place and send them to your home. Nonsense. Her mother was upset when she heard this. Stop talking about this now. You're nearby. Go stop her from quitting her job. Auntie, she definitely won't listen to me right now. You go drag her back. I'll come over immediately. How can she just quit her job like that? After hanging up the phone, I didn't hesitate at all and immediately drove there. When I arrived, I just saw Haley getting out of a taxi. She was wearing a baseball cap and a mask, wrapped in black, for fear of being recognized. As soon as she looked up, she saw me. What are you doing here? I shrugged. Your mom asked me to stop you from resigning. Haley immediately became angry. We have already broken up. What I do has nothing to do with you. I nodded. Yes, yes, yes. Seeing this, she became more aggressive. Rocky, who do you think you are? No matter what I did, putting that aside, are you not wrong? I was wrong. I was wrong to be blind and heartless and to find her as a girlfriend. I was wrong to be unconditionally good to her. Don't think that by catching my faults, I will feel guilty towards you, and there is nothing to regret about breaking up with you. Do you believe it or not? I can find someone better than you in a minute. I smiled. I believe. She glared at me. Get out of here quickly. Haley hadn't been in for a few minutes when a group of people stormed in fiercely. The leader was none other than Tony's wife. She didn't recognize me and walked past me with a stern face. My eyes lit up. Good. It's really timely. It's worth it that I notified her at the first moment that the mistress would appear today. Where is Haley? Get out here. Although Tony's wife was pregnant, she was very loud, and the parents waiting for their children to finish class in the hall all looked up. The front desk was startled and weakly asked, "Hello, are you looking for our teacher Haley too?" What kind of Haley teacher? It's a shameless bitch. Call this stinky bitch out for me. I want to ask her, is it very satisfying to sleep with her own students' parents? As soon as the voice fell, there was an uproar. All the parents were shocked. Where is Haley? Come out. I know you are here now. How dare you do such shameless things? Why not dare to come out and see me? The several people she brought didn't need to be ordered, and every room upstairs and downstairs was not missed. In a short while, a man with a flower arm dragged Haley, who was screaming, down from the second floor. Sister, the person is found. Haley's long hair was roughly pulled. Her cap, mask, and the bag on her body all fell off. The swelling on her face had not subsided, and her eyes were full of guilt when she saw Tony's wife. The original wife sees the mistress, and her eyes are particularly red. Tony's wife gritted her teeth. You are very skillful. Do you think you are very beautiful? Do you think you are very charming? Is it fun to break up other people's families? Is it particularly exciting to flirt with the father of a student in front of the student? Every time she said a word, she would slap Haley hard. Haley was pressed to her knees on the ground and could not avoid it, crying out in pain. She was just beaten by Tony a few days ago, and today she was beaten by his wife again. Her face was red as if it was about to bleed. She cried so hard that she could hardly catch her breath. Tony's wife still couldn't let go after beating her dozens of times. Also said I was a sow, said I was not as good as you everywhere, not as white as you, not as big as you. Stinky bitch, if you love to flirt so much today, let everyone see. See where you are white and where you are big. She said she was going to pull off Haley's clothes. Haley was scared to death, and compared to the pain of being beaten, public humiliation was the most terrifying for her. No. Some parents couldn't bear to watch and tried to stop the fight. The man with the flower arm shouted angrily, I'll see who dares. Whoever helps the mistress is as shameless as her. Haley held her clothes tightly, but how could she resist the strength of several people? She was even dragged on the ground for several meters by people pulling her clothes. She cried and shouted. Her clothes were messy, and she was as embarrassed as possible. Suddenly, someone rushed out of the crowd and hit the man with the flower arm hard. Who are you? Why are you beating my daughter? It turned out to be Haley's mother. Haley seemed to see a savior, shrinking in her mother's arms and sobbing. Tony's wife sneered. You are her mother? You, as a mother, don't you know what your daughter has done? She should have thought about this day when she was a mistress. You're talking nonsense. I know my daughter's character. She would never be a mistress. You're hitting people for no reason, and I'm calling the police. Tony's wife pulled out a stack of papers from somewhere and threw them down on Haley. Then take a good look and see if this seductive woman is your daughter. She and her companions handed out copies of the photos to everyone present, like distributing flyers. Even I, hiding in the corner, received a copy. When I looked at the stack, I was stunned. Good grief, I was astonished. The thick stack was full of explicit photos of Haley. It turns out that what I saw on her phone was already what was left after the cut. It seems that Tony has completely betrayed Haley in order to beg for his wife's forgiveness. The parents couldn't help but start discussing. Damn, is this really teacher Haley? This photo, what's the difference from being completely naked? My goodness, it's too explosive. She doesn't look like the kind of person who would do this at all. Tony's wife has come with a big belly. Can this still be fake? I remember she has a partner. What's the picture for? What else can a mistress picture? Picture someone else's money. I said every time after class, the two people have to leave last. It turned out to be a leg. It's just a pity for the child. I don't know if he has seen anything. Haley's mother was completely stunned. The hand holding those photos has been trembling, and the person involved, at this moment, listening to the discussion of the parents around, wishes to find a hole to crawl into. Tony's wife continued to open up. See clearly? This is your good daughter. During my pregnancy, I seduced my husband and opened a room many times. Aren't you going to call the police? Call. Haley's mother just shouted how loud, now how quiet. The store manager of the organization rushed in from the outside and saw the scene with a black line on his head. He walked in front of Tony's wife. Mrs. Tony, I understand your feelings very much, but we can sit down and communicate slowly if we have anything. You see, the children are still in class. The impact is really not very good, and these photos, etc., must not let the children see. Manager Wong, do you still want to continue using such a teacher who is morally corrupt and shameless? The store manager is in a dilemma. At this time, several female parents actually united in hatred. I hate the most in my life is the mistress, Manager Wong. If you continue to use such a person, we will refund. Yes, refund. Don't let my child be spoiled. With such a person who dares to let the husband come to pick up the baby in the future, Haley was mortified with shame. She didn't know where she found the courage, but she suddenly stood up. Manager Wong, I came here to resign today. You don't need to make things difficult for me. I'll leave voluntarily. With that, she picked up her hat and bag, ready to go. But before she could take 2 steps, someone yanked her back. Tony's wife asked, "Did I tell you to leave?" Haley, clearly on the brink of collapse, cried out with a trembling voice, "You've hit me. You've scolded me. You've ruined my reputation. What more do you want? This LV bag you're carrying was given to you by my husband, right? This is our joint property. If you don't return it, I can sue you." Haley, looking humiliated, took out her phone from her bag and threw the bag forcefully onto the ground. A man immediately took out scissors and, right in front of Haley, quickly cut the bag to shreds. Tony's wife casually remarked, "I find it dirty since you've carried it. Anyway, it's not worth much. He admitted to me that you've had 4 encounters. Each time, he gave you something, but you didn't know, did you? The things you treated as treasures are all fakes. How pathetic. A sex worker probably earns more from a single client than you do." Haley trembled all over. After Tony's wife finished speaking with a sneer, she and her entourage left, leaving behind a crowd stunned in the wind. Haley's mother, with a dark face, pushed the still dazed Haley. "Why are you still standing there? Isn't it embarrassing enough? Your mother's face is thoroughly ruined today because of you." The wife and the mistress had left. Someone said, "Why is it that only the mistress gets punished? Why should women make things hard for other women? Come on, how do you know they didn't deal with the man? You don't know what happens behind closed doors. Anyway, teaching a mistress a lesson is never wrong. It's a real relief. The kids will be out of class soon. Let's tidy up these things quickly. It's too awkward to watch." Whether Tony's wife will forgive him, I don't know, but I won't. Just beating him up wasn't enough to ease my anger. I reported his multiple affairs and his penchant for high-end services to his company, along with a little fabricated rumor. I claimed that he might have contracted a sexually transmitted disease from all his visits to sex workers. Who doesn't enjoy a bit of scandal involving a high-level executive? Within a day, the gossip had spread throughout the company. The more people talked, the wilder the rumors became. Suspected STD gradually evolved into contracted AIDS. Eventually, the story morphed into a mixed bag of truth and fiction. Tony contracted AIDS from visiting sex workers, sought revenge on society by deliberately having multiple affairs, even with his daughter's teacher, and was once taken to the police station. There were also reports from several female colleagues who claimed Tony had harassed them verbally to some extent. Tony's reputation in the company plummeted. I was almost dying of laughter. His colleagues were terrified and complained to the company, saying they couldn't work with someone like him. Tony was left with no defense. His misconduct was a well-known fact, so he had no choice but to accept the company's suspension. When he could return to work was anyone's guess. I packed up all of Haley's things from my place and sent them back to her home, especially the fake bags Tony had given her, which I made sure to place in the most conspicuous spot. When I arrived at her home, she wasn't there, but her mother stubbornly held on to me and asked if there was still a chance for me and her daughter. I pretended to be serious and said, "Auntie, as an elder, I shouldn't say too much in front of you, but there's really no chance for me and Haley anymore. Rockey, you two were together for such a a long time. Can't you forgive her just this once? Haven't you always been good to Haley? Was all that kindness fake? What will she do in the future? No. Do you even hear what you're saying? Are good people supposed to be deceived and betrayed and then be morally blackmailed? Seeing that I didn't respond, Haley's father seemed to struggle with his decision and said, well, in that case, we won't ask for the full $50,000 in dowry. You can deduct $10,000. After all, Haley was at fault first. Taking off $10,000 is our way of showing our attitude. I twitched at the corner of my mouth. This family's logic was really something else. I firmly refused. Uncle, let's forget it. When we broke up, your daughter said she wasn't interested in me. It's better not to inconvenience her. With that, I turned and left. As I walked away, I could still hear the sounds of things being thrown and smashed from her house. Haley's father angrily yelled, "Shameless! Why come back and make a scene after doing something so disgraceful? Get lost." Her mother also complained, "Your brother's house was about to be settled, and now you've messed it all up." Then Haley cried out, "You always favor your son. I'm not your biological child, am I? Fine, I'll leave then." I scoffed. I thought things were over, but a month later, I heard something incredibly shocking. Haley had attacked Tony. Ever since the incident where Tony slapped Haley after being caught in the hotel, she had harbored deep resentment. She was subsequently beaten up publicly by Tony's wife, lost face in front of everyone, and even lost her job. What crushed her further was discovering that Tony actually had a sexually transmitted disease. Haley inevitably got infected. This became the direct trigger for her to kill Tony. I heard that Tony was hit by a car and spent 2 days in the ICU but couldn't be saved. Haley, of course, was charged with premeditated murder and faced legal consequences. For someone as delicate and proud as she was, ending up like this must be worse than death. If only she had known it would come to this, why do it in the first place? The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.